Hello, class. Um, so there's been some changes to your upcoming assignments. So I know you all turned in your pitch proposal assignment. Thank you for doing that. I will go through your drafts and I will get you notes for those so that you can turn in your final draft on Sunday. And you'll have some input from me. There's also peer edits for those. So none of that has changed. However, the remainder of your assignments, which I'm going to explain in this video, are all based on the survey that you will do that was determined by the pitch analysis that you or your group would choose. The assignment is changing because you are no longer required to remain in a group or your group to do this assignment. Because of some challenges with other classes within the technical communication department, we are now allowing all students to choose an individual option for their assignments so that you do not have to work with a group, because group work has proven to be quite challenging in these courses that were initially set up to be face-to-face courses that are instead now remote delivery. So what that means is you can decide if you would like to remain in your group, and you can continue working on the assignment as a member of the group, or you can choose to do the assignment as an individual. I have updated the assignment descriptions and I will upload those, and they indicate what the differences are between if you do it as a group or individual, which we'll discuss momentarily. But the big takeaway from this is whether you do the assignment in a group or whether you do it individually, the assignment itself remains the same. So you will have to do, as an individual, you technically would have to do more work. However, if you're very apprehensive about group work, or your experience with your group so far has not really given you confidence that you will be able to complete the assignment successfully as a member of a group, then you can choose to do the assignment individually. We may have some cases where students have opted out of being in a group, and so you may be the sole individual member of your group that wants to remain in a group. If that happens, I'm going to combine some groups so that you will be able to do the assignment as a group if you wish. If possible, if not, you may end up having to do the assignment individually, but I will work that out with each of you on an individual basis. So I know that this makes things a little bit more complicated perhaps for some of you. For others, it may ease some stress. So what I have done is I have posted an announcement, and I also sent out an email requesting that you either send me a message through Canvas or email me to let me know your preference about doing the assignment individually or remaining in a group. Once I get all of that information from you by tomorrow is the deadline for that, I will rearrange the groups as necessary and pull out members that would like to do the assignment individually. And then from that point, once we have all of that set, which should happen on Thursday, then you'll know how you need to move forward for the assignments. So one big difference is if you're already working on your pitch proposals, if you're in a group, you still need to collaborate with that group and determine which of those pitches you're choosing to move forward for the survey assignment. If you're doing the assignment individually, you'll just use the idea that you've already formulated, and then you will turn that idea into a survey and then ultimately into the final survey report. So that part nothing is changing if you're remaining in a group. The only things that change are if you decide to do this as an individual assignment. So I'm gonna go ahead and get into the assignment description now, give you some more input or I guess description of what it is that I'm asking for in this assignment, which may help some of you decide if you want to do this assignment as an individual or as a group. But of course, as we go forward, if you have questions later, if you email me, you can connect with me through a Zoom meeting. You can join me for office hours, which happen every Wednesday from 5 to 6. Just feel free to reach out to me any way you want. I can talk with you through your options and make sure that you end up choosing the right option for yourself as we go forward and you complete these last roughly 2 assignments for the class. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen now. Let me find where the assignment is listed. This is always the most fun for everyone, where I try to figure out what we're doing. Okay, so let me go ahead and share this with you. So this first part of the assignment has to do with developing your survey. So with the survey, the goal is you're taking your pitch proposal, which could be whatever it is that you've chosen, and then you're going to change that pitch or use that pitch as a foundation for your survey. So your survey is going to include 28 questions minimum that are going to answer some questions about whatever your topic is. So if you've chosen email communication in the workplace, if you've chosen commuting, right? Whatever it is that you've chosen as your idea, then you will use that for kind of as a foundation for your survey. So you're going to design the survey, write valid survey questions, which I'll discuss in a presentation I'll post today, which is Tuesday, April 14th. You'll construct your survey, write valid survey questions, all of that stuff, and you will do this in Qualtrics. Everybody has access to Qualtrics because you're a UNT student. You can log into your MyUNT account, and it is one of the options that's available through your MyUNT account. I'm going to go ahead and show you where that is now, because I do think it will be useful for some of you. So if I go to my.unt.edu, and then it's going to prompt me to log in. So I'm going to do that. All of you have done this 1,000 times, so it's not anything that's super challenging. But I did want to show you where you find the Qualtrics information, because it is a bit hidden. So from the student homepage, you have all of your little squares here. This is what mine look like. Yours might look kind of different. But if you go into resources and you click that box, then it's going to pull all of this up. And there is a section for Qualtrics. So you will click on the online survey tool, and then it will prompt you to log in again. Let me go ahead and do that. And then it gives you the Qualtrics kind of layout. And so then from here, you can add your survey, and then you can start working on the questions and everything else. So you can find that just through your MyUNT account. Super simple. That part is really, really pretty easy to do. Okay, so the scenario for your project is either as a group where you'll work with a team, or individually where you work alone. You're going to create a survey in Qualtrics and send it to your target population. So you can send this out to our class. You can also send it out to, Facebook. You can send it out to different groups based on whoever it is that you're looking at for your target population. So with the survey that's based in kind of workplace communication or workplace events just in general, you might be looking for people who have had a job in the past. You might be looking for different kinds of target populations. However, a larger survey size or sample size is going to help you out quite a lot with your results, because if you only get 5 responses, that's a very limited survey size or sample size. Whereas if you send it out to your Facebook group and you get, or friends on Facebook, if you send it out through email, if you do use your class, things like that, then and you get 25 responses, then that's a much better sample, so that you can actually have viable data to pull back from, or to use for your report and your analysis. So for this part of the assignment, you're going to create the survey in Qualtrics, send it to your target population, and then follow up your survey with a publication to, give me a second. Let's see, you want to maximize the number of responses, which is basically what I was just discussing. So you just want to make sure that you get as many responses as you need, but you're designing your survey based on either your team member's pitch project that you have chosen, or your own individual pitch proposal that you've already written, in which case you just move forward with that. So the scenario is you're designing a survey to find out more information for your report. It's pretty straightforward. So you're going to use Qualtrics to structure and format the survey. instructions and guidelines will be provided in class right now and then potentially in the other videos that I'm going to post. And then also readings, which I have included some of those in the module for this week that you can go and read some other tips about formulating surveys, formulating survey questions, all of that. So with the structure and format of the survey, you're going to ask 28 total questions. Within those 28 questions, there's going to be 4 sections. So you will establish, you know, kind of what information you're looking to gather, and then you will put those into 4 different kind of sections that are going to help you gather the information that you need. So for instance, the example that they provide is, in a customer satisfaction survey for a restaurant, there might be a section on food, service, location, beverages, and general demographic information, right? And so whenever you identify what your pitch is going to be or what your topic is going to be, then you will identify, okay, with commuting, for instance, there are 4 different categories we want to look at. We want to identify more factors about how people are commuting. We want to find out how they entertain themselves while commuting. We want to find out if they had other options for commuting, would they choose those, whatever else it is that you want to identify and then share. So if you can't identify 4 individual sections of the survey, and maybe you've only come up with 3 or something like that, then that's fine. Ideally, you'll have 4 because it makes it a very equal split for those of you remaining in groups of 4 people, because each person in the group will write 7 questions, which are going to add up to a total of 28 questions for your survey. So ideally, you're going to have 4 sections. If you have 3 sections, that's fine. Either way, your survey should include at minimum 28 total questions. Each member of your group, if you've got 3 members, then you need to split that 28 questions into something between all of your group. But everybody needs to write at least 7 questions by themselves. And then you will inform me which questions that each of you have written. And so then that's going to help me to do grading in the end. If you are doing this individually, you're just responsible for writing all 28 questions by yourself. The survey itself should not take more than 10 minutes to complete. So whenever you're going through and writing this, you don't need to make a bunch of complicated questions. You don't need to add in 50 just for bonus points. That's not useful. Instead, make sure it's no more than 10 minutes to complete, and you need to have at least 28 questions. You need to organize the questions in a way that makes sense, which is part of why I mentioned the sections. Because if you're talking about, you know, 4 individual things or trying to gather 4 individual pieces of information, then you break those 7 questions down into those 4 pieces, and that would help you move forward. You need to make sure that your questions do not promote response bias, and you want to make sure that you have a high completion rate. If you make the questions confusing, or you make the questions too complicated, or you start asking really personal questions for some reason, people are less likely to complete it. So you want to make sure your questions are worded in such a way people will complete the survey, or the survey. And then with response bias, you want to make sure that you're not asking leading questions, which we'll discuss in the next video that I post. But with response bias, you don't want to say, like, do you think, like, for instance, do you think Abraham Lincoln was the greatest president we've ever had, or the absolute greatest president we've ever had, right? Like, you're not going to ask those sorts of questions that force people to have an opinion that aligns with what you want. And instead, you're trying to get them to answer a question that they get to provide their actual feelings and feedback. So that's kind of how it's going to be structured. Again, 4 sections, 7 questions per section, which leads to 28 total questions. You have fewer sections, that's fine. Just make sure that you have 28 total questions within those sections, and organize it in such a way that it's logical for the person who's taking the survey. So there are going to be next week and this week where we're doing kind of a workshop on surveys as much as we can distant, learning remotely. But you're going to have several assignments that are due for this. There is going to be an individual memo that's due. You have to send a link to your survey as well. And then there is the final report that's due. So there's at least those 3 things that you do have to do for this. For everybody, whether you're doing a group or individual assignment, you're going to be graded on the assignments that you turn in. Also, you can lose points on things like late work, absenteeism, poor quality work, off-task behavior, and similar issues. So if you're in a group, you decide that you're going to remain in a group and 3 people are actively working on the project, one of you is not, then that person who is not working on the project actively is going to lose points. For the individual option, it's exactly the same thing. If you miss due dates, if you are not participating, then there will be some challenges for you there. Within this entire project, there will be a time that I said, and I can't remember, let me look at the syllabus, and I'll be able to tell you what exactly that date is. But we are going to, during the week of April 27th to May 3rd, we will have conferences. So whether you're in a group or you're working individually, I am going to meet with each of your teams or you individually to discuss the survey assignment and make sure you know exactly what it is that you're doing. So there will be a check-in point where you do get to ask questions. You get to work with me directly. And again, nobody is really taking me up on it so far, but I am here to help you to answer questions, whether it's through email, which some of you have communicated with me through email, but also during office hours, also in separate meetings if you need them. I'm here to help you as much as I can. So all of this is part 1, where you create the survey and you distribute the survey. And then part 2 is your survey report assignments. Let me make this a bit bigger. 200 is probably fine, although kind of large, but we'll work through it. So phase 2 of the survey project is based on what you did in phase 1. So you'll take all of the data that you gathered from the survey, you're going to analyze the responses, you're going to analyze the information, and you're going to present the information and your findings in words and graphs. So let me go back. I'm sorry, I did forget one thing. With your survey construction, at least one of your questions needs to be open response, which I hope that I included that language there, but I'll make sure and add it if I didn't. But you do need to have at least one of the questions be an open response question, and I'll explain that in a minute. So you're going to take all the information, you're going to analyze it, you're going to use words and graphs to describe that information and provide the information for your audience. Your report will include Excel graphs pertaining to the most significant findings from your survey. You will have a preliminary draft and a final draft due for this assignment. We will do peer reviews just like we've been doing previously, and so you will have an option or an opportunity to gather some input from your peers and also from me. So your overall word count for this is going to be 1,500 words, and your audience for this is really going to be whoever the client is, real or hypothetical, who commissioned the report. So if you are working on a report about commuting to work, maybe your client would be the toll authority, right? Or your client, you can make up whoever the client is, right? But make it pertain to what it is that you are writing or to your topic. Just make sure it's relevant to whatever your topic is. So you will have 1,500 total words, then you will include all of this information in the document. Now there have been some, I think there's been some confusion about report organization, and I'll clarify that here. Whenever I'm providing this kind of structure to you as an example or in your assignment prompt, use it as a guiding force to help you organize your report in a way that makes sense to your reader. And also use it as a guide for what it is that I'm expecting of you for your assignment. So you've got your opening statement, which you're not going to title this opening statement, right? Like this is your introduction, this is the beginning of your report, this is where you grab somebody's attention. So you are not going to use opening statement as your header for a section. That is inappropriate and it's confusing. But you do need to include an opening statement in your document. So you need to provide the purpose of the document, the importance of the subject, and your position. And all of this would be in an introduction, right? Or you can title it whatever you want that's not opening statement, okay? This just indicates to you that you do have to have an opening statement in your document that gives information to your reader, just like we've done in all of our previous assignments. And it needs to include the purpose of the document, the importance of the subject, and your position, which should be your overall recommendation that relates to the overall survey goal. Second, you're going to have your methodology, sources of data, and limitations. Within this, you're going to describe the goals of the survey, your number of questions, a description of the sections, who you distributed the survey to, how many responses you got, what manner you got the responses. If you found out that only 50% of the people responded to the survey or completed the survey, for instance, and you want to include that, you might do that there. And then you can address limitations here. So if you decide that you're only going to get responses from your classmates, and then that very much limits the age range of the data that you're gathering, then you would include that as a limitation, right? Or if you're distributing it only to people that you know, then maybe that would be a limitation, but you would address whatever limitations you have in the methodology section. Then you have your findings and conclusions. This is exactly what we've done for everything else. These would be your issues, right? So you're going to support your position based on information that you gathered from the survey. So if you found out that people who commute, on average commute 30 minutes a day, and during that time they maybe ride, 30% of them do ride share, but 70% of them drive their own vehicles. Whatever the findings and conclusions are, you're going to extrapolate the information that you've already gathered through your survey. You're going to identify what the connections are and identify what's important, and then develop your findings and your conclusions from that information. You can include secondary sources, right? Because you're doing primary research through your survey. But if you want to provide secondary sources that support your position, then that would be really useful. So you can include whatever information you want there to support it, but you do need to provide or to support your position just like we've done in everything else. You don't have to use every response for every question. That's part of the reason why you're asking 28 total questions, is so that if some of the information does not provide useful information to you, don't use that, right? And then as you present your conclusions and recommendations, and address at least one anticipated counter argument. So if you have decided that people who commute are most likely to listen to podcasts on their way to work to entertain themselves, whatever it is that you're trying to find, you need to think of at least one possible counter argument, and you need to address that in your conclusions and recommendations. So you need to include in this section at least one word cloud that's accompanied by a discussion of the open-ended comments. So that's why you have an open-ended question in your survey. And then you also need to include 3 graphs that you create using Excel. So because you're going to have numerical data, right? Say you've got 45 responses to your questions, and you know that 30% of those people have selected one or another choice, then that 30% can help you potentially make a pie chart, right? You can include, if you're asking, what methods people from different demographic ranges, what methods they use to entertain themselves while driving, for instance, or while commuting, then you could have a stacked bar graph that shows multiple different pieces of information in that graph. So in addition to the one word cloud, you also need 3 graphs that are going to accompany each, or 3 graphs that are going to explain additional information, and you need to make sure that you discuss that data in your document. You don't just like dump a graph or a chart in there and then hope people get it. You need to talk about it in the dialogue, and you also need to make sure that you include captions with those to tell them, or titles to tell the reader what it is that graph shows. And then finally, you're going to have your closing statement and your action program. So what steps do you advise the audience to take relevant to the survey goals? And then what is the point of the information that you've shared, right? So that would be included. There. So for instance, in your pitch, you may have, you may be pitching, and I'm obviously just making this up, right? But you may be pitching that in order to advance their careers professionally, people should listen to motivational podcasts on their way to work. Okay, so then in your closing statement, you would advise the audience that yes, it is beneficial to listen to motivational podcasts on their way to work. So then your recommendation is that they should do it, and it's supported by this evidence, right? So it's just a concluding statement or concluding information about the topic. So you're going to create the report in Word. You should organize it in a way that makes sense to the reader. You need to use, it needs to be a readable size. Headings, subheadings, figure captions, bullets, tables need to be used to make it useful for the reader. There are quite a lot of you who are not organizing your documents well, that are not including all of these signposts like headings, subheadings, captions, bullets, tables, all of that. You have to do that. That's part of the reason for this class. It's also part of the expectation of the working world. So you've got to include that information. You need to use Excel to create your graphs, and you want to storytell with data, right? Like you want to have people look at that information, look at the graph, think about the things we did with visualization. Think about all of that and make sure you're telling a story that's going to help your reader understand what you're saying, and that's also going to support your position. Your grading criteria is going to be the same as all of the assignments you've done so far in this class. I'm looking for purpose audience, making sure that you have your position clearly stated in there and that the information is tailored to the needs of the audience, that you include a call to action, that you present the information and state your position in a way that's going to help your audience. Development and support. All of your support pieces, all the information that you provide to your audience should back up what you have included as your position statement, right? So you need to have support through your all the data that you collect, the surveys that you include, any secondary sources that you include, all of that needs to be there. You don't just string wrong numbers, but you need to explain why you've done that and how your data supports your position. And then organization and format, you need to use the proper structure. You need to include well-structured paragraphs where the topic sentence introduces the reader, and then every sentence after that builds upon an idea. Use transitional phrases. You present information in a manner that makes it easier for the reader to find information. That's where your headings, subheadings, captions, all of that come in. And then lastly, professional ethos, that your tone is informal but professional, that you use active voice, concise sentences, correct grammar, spelling, word choice, all of the things that I reviewed with you in the conciseness, clarity, and fluency videos last week. Your final report is going to be due on May the 6th by midnight or 11:59 p.m. Your preliminary draft is due the week before that, I believe. So your preliminary draft is worth 100 points. That goes into your homework and professionalism section of your grade. And then your final draft is 25% of your final grade for this course. So it is a big assignment. If you are doing extremely well, then this can help you continue doing extremely well. If you aren't doing as well as you'd like, if you do well on this final project, then it could really boost your grades. So it does matter what you do here. So that's kind of the gist of the assignment. I am here to, like I mentioned, here to answer any questions that you have, and I will provide some additional videos, at least one, if not two, that explain how you write your questions, how you include valid questions, how you make sure that you are getting the responses that you want for those questions and all of that. You will have to turn in the link to your survey. And whenever you do that, I will go through and look at your survey questions and provide you notes to make sure that the survey is well formulated and that you are trying to say exactly what it is that you're intending to say. And again, I will meet with you individually or your group, depending on which option you choose, to discuss your assignment in the future. So the immediate thing that you need to do is you have to let me know by tomorrow if you want to continue and do this assignment as an individual or if you want to do it as a group. That is very important because that's going to let me know how you plan to continue this course, and it's going to help you know how you need to plan for your upcoming assignments. because you do have to write survey questions that are going to be due next week. So the rest of the semester is going to go relatively fast because you have to create your survey, you have to get the responses so that you can start writing your final report that's due on May 6th. So we have a pretty limited period of time to do all of this. And so it is important that you make this decision quickly and that you start planning for what you will do for the future. I apologize for the confusion with the team charter and then now changing course, but the department sent this notification out to me late last week. And so we had already had the team charter assignment due by the time that all of this came to pass. So anyway, I'm here to answer any questions that you have. Just let me know what your preference is, and I'm happy to help you with whatever it is that you need. But I hope that you have a good week. Please do all of the things I'm mentioning to you in the modules. They're going to help you as you finish up your assignment. And I will be posting some additional videos to help you understand what you need to be doing for your survey questions. So thanks for your time. I'm here to help, and have a good week. Thank you.